Hello, everybody. I'm very excited having again this Volunteer Nation live event that we're waiting every month. This is a very special one that we wanted to have with you guys, and we're having more than 100 people attending right now, which is very, very exciting. So welcome, and as you know, we're trying to build opportunities for us to connect with you as we are a virtual community of volunteers, and we feel, I don't know, but lately I have been feeling very proud of this virtual community. I'm so glad the organization at some point made the decision of changing into a completely 100% virtual community. And, you know, we can see right now that it was an excellent decision, and we are all working and we're all ready and we are used to this virtual type of engagement. So I'm gonna go over the agenda that we're gonna cover today. So I was supposed to do a short introduction. I'm gonna also introduce Cynthia Hamburger, who is our COO and CIO, and she is gonna telling us what's going on, what are we doing to make sure we support our communities and our clients within these challenging times. Then I'm gonna go over some news and updates for building books and how that connect to the current situation, and then we're going to go over Q&A that Rosa will be guiding. So first of all, I want to make sure, and I really hope you guys are doing well within this social distancing time. I hope you're safe, and I hope you're following, you know, the recommendations of the healthcare authorities. We really are looking forward for you to be safe, and if you need something, we are a community, so if you can let us know if there's something that you may need. We are a community and we want to make sure we all try to support each other. I also wanted to say that I want to thank you for everything that you're doing. Within the last 2 weeks, we have seen such an increase in volunteer interest. The ones that are already doing something or recording or doing listening, reading, are already asking us, what else can I do? So the support that we're receiving is just incredible from our volunteers, also with our fundraising campaign. And you know, we just need to create more books for these kids that are struggling right now more than ever. So just wanted to leave that note of thank you so much. And I wanted to go over, remember that every time we have our meeting, we go over our values. So I have my card here, and I just wanted to mention a particular value that I think is so relevant to us right now, is that we innovate with the speed, we deliver solution with the speed, we are curious and willing to try, fail, and learn while providing creative solutions for our students and our organization. As you have seen, things are changing so quickly right now, and we're trying to work on that, and that's why we have invited Cynthia Hamburger, who I want to introduce right now. Cynthia has been with the organization for 8 years. She's our leader, and she's actually a huge supporter of our production team and our Volunteer Nation. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, Paula. And again, thank you to all of our volunteers, and also thank you to our amazing Learning Ally production team, our volunteer leadership team. Thank you, Paula, for setting up these sessions. And I'm so excited to see how well received they've become. And so I'm excited to be able to present to you guys today. So first of all, what does a Chief Operating Officer and CIO of Learning Ally do every day? Well, even though we're all social distancing and we're all sitting here in our private homes isolating, every single one of my days is different. I'm responsible for the process of making our books through the leadership of this amazing production team. I'm responsible for the delivery of our products and solutions to our customers, to our parents, our educators, and our students through our educator and customer success teams. I'm also responsible for the building of our technology products through our technology team. As a matter of fact, starting tomorrow, we're actually bringing on a new VP of technology reporting into me, who is coming in with a whole new background in emerging technologies that we're really excited to be able to take advantage of. And I'm also responsible for our College Success Program, which is a program that focuses on our blind and visually impaired college students, helping them to have a successful college career. And also, we're starting to work on a program for graduating juniors and seniors to get them ready for the college track even a little bit earlier. So as a chief operating officer and a CIO, I do a lot of different things, and I wear a lot of different hats. But there is never been, I've been in business a long time, and I have never led through a period of such uncertainty. I went through 9/11, I went through Hurricane Katrina, I went through so many different things that I thought were crises as a Wall Street leader, none of which is anything similar to what we're doing here. There's just such a significant period of uncertainty, and I know it creates a lot of stress and anxiety in our system, both for our volunteers and also for our staff, as we transition from working together around tables to working virtually through Zoom. But I am happy to say that Learning Ally has made the transition very easily. We made it literally over a 2 or 3 day period. We moved our entire operation virtually. As Paul had mentioned, thanks to the support of many of you that are on this call, a couple of years ago, under Dave Kazemchek's leadership, we've moved our entire book production and volunteer nation virtual. So we were actually fairly well positioned for this transition. Although nothing can prepare you for something like this that's affecting us all. So we're focused on a number of things. So first of all, we are trying very hard to lead with data and facts, not with fear or panic. So we're being very, very thoughtful about all of the actions that we're taking to support our customers through this period of time. We're doing a lot of data gathering about what do they need from us and how are those needs changing day by day and week by week. So the things that we're working on today, we'll get those out the door, and next week we're going to be innovating around brand new ideas, because that's the way this crisis is actually affecting our schools in particular, and our parents and our students. So we've got a couple of things that we're working on. So first of all, I do want to say that you can't help but be concerned about the financial situation of any organization through this period of time. And we're working very hard to stay financially stable. We're managing our expenses very, very carefully. But there are trade-offs that we're having to make, and things that we're not going to be able to do that we had planned to do for our customers. We're also, because we're hearing from educators that there's just so much anxiety in the system. They're no longer working in their buildings, they're working now at home. We are looking for ways to support our schools and our household members with different kinds of memberships that allow them to have the audiobooks very easily in the hands of our students. And I'll talk more about that. We also believe that in any kind of crisis, there's also opportunity. And the way we want to come out of this crisis is actually to work to become more and more and more of a trusted partner to both our educators, our parents, and our donors, that positions us for growth beyond. Now, we won't be growing in this year, our fiscal year 20, we probably won't be growing. But if we make the right steps now, and we can really reinforce that trusted partner relationship with our educators, we can actually position ourselves for growth when we come out the other end of this crisis. So we've actually established 3 task forces that are cross-functional task forces that have all with different goals. I'm not going to look at the chat. I see some questions coming in. We'll take this offline when Russell comes back on, and then we'll handle any of those questions. So the first task force is a task force that's all focused on just school customers. And their goals are all around how do we use this opportunity to get more students reading. Students that were accustomed to reading in the school, and they're now reading at home. So that whole process of getting educators using and getting students reading is one of the teams. The other one is a household and fund development team. So how do we help certifiers that are certifying our kids and parents that are at home with their kids have the parent tools that they need to be able to help their students reading and keep that reading going on throughout this period of time. And then the third task force, again, a cross-functional task force, is all focused around professional learning and parent support. So what kinds of tools and resources, both pre-recorded and live learning opportunities, do we need to create for our educators and to some extent for our parents? So those are three separate task forces that are running across the system that are all driving with the value behind them that Paula mentioned around innovating with speed. So we're using data to make decisions, but we're also going to try some things, some of which will work and some of which inevitably won't. But that's kind of how we're organizing ourselves. So there's a couple of things that we're doing with these teams. So the first thing is we have begun, I guess at the end of last week, we began offering complimentary memberships to our school customers. And we're doing this in waves because we want to make sure that we continue to deliver a high quality of service to our customers. And if we have a tsunami coming at us, we're going to struggle to maintain that quality. So we're actually rolling this program out in waves. And the first wave was that any school that had bought a certain number of seats, let's say they bought 10 seats, we have now given them virtually unlimited seats all through August 1st. So if you were a 10-seat customer, a 10-seat school, you now can use it for your whole school, complimentary. And we're also now beginning to roll it out to the next wave, just actually launched today, to any district that has a single school that's using. We're now making it available to the entire district. So that's a complimentary offer to the rest of the district. The last wave will be, and probably in the next couple of days or early next week, will be anybody that we've been in a sales process with, that have been in our opportunity pipeline, will now also be offered a complimentary membership for their school and district, also through August 1st. So the objective there is to remove any barrier to getting students loaded and reading. And I'll share with you in a few minutes, we've had tremendous results even from these first waves that are coming through. The next thing we're doing is we are standing up a separate website that I'll make sure that Paula sends you the link when it's up, that is a whole scaffolded set of professional learning that is targeted towards educators, families, and parents and students. And what we're finding is that historically, as you may know, we've had a school business where we were able to get kids reading through their schools. And then we had an individual household business or channel where a single parent would buy a Learning Ally membership and deliver it just to that student. Now, because our parents are home with their children and they're homeschooling, virtually homeschooling their children, we now have an influx of parents that are looking for support and resources. So as we're building out our professional learning solution, we're also adding professional learning and support for parents that we had never had anything even close to this. So that new site will be standing up over the next 5 to 10 days. And it's going to be an exciting combination of real-time, live, pre-recorded tips and techniques, a whole set of resources that will be available to administrators in schools, educators in schools, and parents at home. We're also going to be creating a much more targeted book recommendation process for our students that's going to be organized by grade band. So when a 4th grader is on our Learning Ally audiobook app and they've just read a book, we're going to give them a list of other books that they might be interested in. So that's very exciting for us because it takes some of the guesswork out of their process of starting to read. So we're measuring success here by how many educators we activate and ultimately how many students are reading and how much they're reading. That's really our measure of success here. We're also exploring dramatic price reductions in the individual household space. So these are parents that buy the membership individually versus through schools. We're deeply discounting that membership. We're also dramatically loosening our scholarship requirements. So if there is a hardship, a financial hardship in a home, and you tell us you have a hardship, it's the honor system, we're going to give you a complimentary membership. So we're trying to remove any barriers to, at least any of the barriers that we can control to getting the kids up and reading. And then in addition to that, we're also developing philanthropic plans to identify additional sources of funding to support these initiatives, because obviously we're moving into a heavy complementary model, which is going to have a significant impact on our financial performance in this fiscal year. So we're going to keep watching the data. We're going to be listening to our clients. There's a lot of great emerging information and feedback that's now coming from educators as they're beginning to settle in to this new normal, and we're leveraging all of that feedback to design these new offerings. We also, over the last 2 years, have been pretty systematically hiring former educators to become members of our staff. So the people that run our customer success and educator success business are all former educators. The folks that are building our solutions and designing our solution, there's a whole team of former educators that are now on staff. And the team that are building our professional learning solutions and our parent engagement offerings are also all former educators. So that's a significant shift that we've been making over the last couple of years. And it allows us to have firsthand knowledge of what these educators need, maybe not in a crisis like this, but in general, what does it take to effectively educate students that have print-related deficits? The one thing we cannot change as it relates to our audiobook solution is we cannot move beyond the eligibility requirements. We have to stay in the box of offering our books to anybody with a certified print-related deficit. We still can't offer that more broadly. At the same time, independent of this crisis, we've also started to work on an early literacy offering that would not be gated by that requirement, that would allow us to identify students that may be a struggling reader much earlier in their school career, and then get them on track to start using our audiobook solution much earlier than we're able to now. So just a couple of data points. The calls coming into our call center are more than double than they were this time last year or the weeks before this crisis. So more than double. They're coming from both the parents of the students that are in the schools, which is a new constituent for us. They're coming from parents, and they're coming from educators. The open rates on our emails that have been making these complimentary offers are in the 50% zone, which is significantly higher than industry standard open rates. In the last week, let me get my dates right, from March 18th to March 26th or 27th. So that week when the crisis really got going and we started launching all of these programs, we've added 22,000 new students, which is 6 or 7 times more than this same week last year. 22,000 students. We've added almost 1,800 new educators. So these numbers are 6 or 7 times higher than they were before. We've added many new schools that were not active with us in the past. Now, the ultimate measure of success, which is where I started, is to get the students reading. So we're really excited about having 22,000 new students added, which was last week's success. This week's success it has to be that we have to get them reading, and then next week's success is we have to get them reading more minutes per day. So I'll be happy to take questions on that because it's a lot of data, but we're really excited about the early results. And these other offerings, these other complementary offerings that I've mentioned are only starting to be launched today. So we're expecting the next 2 weeks we'll also see significant jumps. Let me see, what else do I have? Okay, so so the other thing that's happened in the household business, again, the individual business, is our renewal rates are so people are staying with us. They're not dropping off, which is very good. As you can imagine, the inbound school sales calls, the inbound and outbound school sales calls are down dramatically, and that's a decision that we've made to, as we're going to lead through this crisis. We're not doing any outbound selling to schools. The last thing educators need are calls from vendors. So we're going to offer them complimentary memberships through August 1st, but we're not going to have salespeople calling on them. As a matter of fact, we're going to redeploy those salespeople to have them help us drive usage in those schools, because again, the ultimate measure is students reading our audiobooks. So that's really the ultimate measure. The other thing I'm really excited to share is that we're making the numbers of books that we're making per month are going up. The numbers of high quality literature books and instructional textbooks that we're making are going up. Thank you to this group. I'm so grateful for that. And the demand is going through the roof, so we're going to be asking more and more of you in terms of your valuable time, because the kids are actually wanting, really wanting to use these books. So I think just in closing, and then we can open it up for any questions, because there's so much information that we could share, is we're going to continue to watch the data. We spend a lot of time in the way we're messaging. We want to make sure that we are never accused of being tone deaf. We're very, very careful about how we're engaging with our educators and with our parents. We're asking for a lot of feedback. And if we make a mistake, we'll fix it. But we're also moving very quickly to try to innovate around new ideas that are ideas that may actually make sense for us to operationalize well into the future, as we see how this new normal is going to evolve over the next couple of months. So we're happy with the early results, and there's a lot more to come, and we'll keep evaluating as we go. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Paula and Russell.
So I'm just going to go over information about our Building Books for Student Success campaign, and how that information connects with the information that Cynthia just shared with us. As you can see, Learning Ally is quickly changing our service model to meet the new demands of the current situation. And in that way, we also wanted to share with you some information about our spring fundraising campaign that we do every year, and that you have been helping us a lot with. So what I'm seeing, and it's interesting, what I'm seeing in the chat and in the questions, is that we're having a lot of new people. If you're interested in volunteering and you at some point were interested in donating your time, we're adding some links there for you to register. This is a great time to help us. We need your help. And the other thing, for some of you that don't know, we do every year a fundraising campaign in the spring that is called Building Books for Student Success. And that campaign started on March 1st. And just because of the current situation, we just had to change our message around the campaign as well. As we're doing all these things that will obviously potentially affect our financials this year, we definitely need to fundraise now more than ever. And we have definitely changed the campaign. And this is the time on which some of our volunteers can help us creating a fundraising campaign. Just to give you some numbers around milestones and outcomes, we already have raised $20,000, and we have already created 60 fundraising campaigns, which means that you guys are helping us fundraise right now. In terms of the resources that are there for you to be successful with your fundraising campaign, is that we have videos on how to create it, how to promote it, how to make it easier for anybody to donate. It will take you only 2 minutes to create one campaign. We have designed a toolkit, which is a document that gives you a lot of ideas on how you can do it, how you can share, and what information is relevant. We're doing in our Facebook group, which I invite you to join, we're providing a lot of information, tips on Monday and Tuesday. We're sharing milestones. We're sharing videos of the kids that are being impacted by all this funding that we're getting. And our Learning Ally staff is there. Our production team is there. If you have questions, if you need help, just let us know. Also, if you're a volunteer who have experience in fundraising, just like reach out to me. We can kind of like brainstorm and see what else we can do. But at least the tools that you have to be successful in your fundraising campaign are there. I know this time is challenging, but we see, I was having a discussion earlier today with our CEO in terms of the things that people are concerned about right now in terms of fundraising. Obviously, healthcare providers come on top. Second, obviously, we want to make sure everybody has, food on the table, and we see unemployment right now growing. But the third one for sure is education. Education, it's now, all the education sector, it's also part of the crisis, and everybody's trying to find solutions, and our struggling learners need us more than ever. So that is just general information that I wanted to share with you about building books. I know it's a lot, but feel free to reach out to me. And for those volunteers who are interested in joining just our program, just go to learningally.org/volunteer, and you will find all information there. So I know we have kind of like given you a lot of information. I saw amazing questions on the Q&A, Cynthia, so I'm just going to pass it on to
I just want to add
Russell.
one thing, that one number that I didn't reference. We had 264, so I said 22,000 new students from March 18th to March 27th, almost 1,800 new educators, 264 new volunteers.
Yay.
Those numbers are amazing to us.
Yes, just to give you an idea, normally January, it's always our top month in terms of volunteer recruitment. This March 2020 has double any January month ever. So thank you so much for that interest. So I'm going to pass it on to Russell to go over questions, and we'll be ready to answer.
All right, thank you very much. One of the first questions that came up here and has gotten some good attention actually is, Cynthia, are you able to give an example of what live learning events we have planned for our students and borrowers?
For our students, no, I can't give you an example. For our educators, we've got a number of events that are in the works. We've got 3 modules, 3 professional learning modules around how to use audiobooks that were originally designed for how to use audiobooks in the classroom, that we're now changing to be how to use audiobooks in a distance learning setting. And as part of that, there are parent support materials that we share with educators, so that our educators can then share those materials with the parents. So that's one example. We're also launching next week a set of rapid launch modules, because we're expecting an exponentially higher number of schools to be coming to register with Learning Ally, and we want to keep our service levels at this level of excellence that we're accustomed to. So we're creating live rapid launch modules so that teachers and administrators can sign on, and we can very quickly tell them how to sign up their educators, and how to add students, and how to put books on those students' bookshelves. So those will be live modules that are run as often as we need to. There'll be 30 minutes a couple of times a day, every day, to try to get our educators up and running. We're also noticing this past weekend, we had a much higher than normal level of activity over the weekend. We had over 2,000 students added by our educators on Saturday and Sunday. It's typically less than 100. We're seeing that these educators are literally working 7 days a week to get these kids up and running. And so we want to make sure that we're providing them with as much real-time support as possible.
Okay, thank you.
There's also, I think it actually might be happening maybe right now, there's also an EdWeb distance learning professional learning session that's being delivered. Anybody can register through EdWeb. It's a free webinar that we've also recast some of our material to be much more focused on how to in a distance learning or in a home environment versus how to in a classroom environment. And those are going to be running as well on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from Bruce asking, I guess, for more clarification on a comment you made earlier in saying that, we have, more students and educators added, but that Learning Ally is not growing per se in 2020. If you can just sort of clarify the differences there. I think we're kind of talking about growing in one sector versus in another, but you wouldn't mind just clarifying.
It depends on what your currency is for growing. We were on a track before this crisis hit to grow the number of students reading in our school business by 22% over last year. So we consider that growing because we measure our results both in terms of the reach and impact that we have and also in our financial measures. So we were growing both financially and also in terms of student impact. So when this hit, of course, we took a little bit of a dip, but now we're seeing 22,000 kids added in the last week, which tells me we may actually change that trajectory to end up growing better than 22% in the school business this year. So I'm not sure where I gave the impression that we weren't growing.
All
So
right.
you can ask, maybe clarify that question if
Yeah, if you do want to add clarification, you can just add that to there.
The other thing I just wanted to point out that I saw Alexi drop in, that we also have done a record number of literature books last month, 104? What did I see, Alexi? 104, I think, was a record number of literature books last month. So congratulations on that one, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I think the question was about whether or not we would be growing staff at this time.
Oh, staff. Okay. That's a different question. So we, I guess on the numbers, I don't know if we actually have added an additional number of people. We have been systematically reallocating where our staff is. So we've been growing our sales teams, our school sales teams pretty systematically over the last couple of years. We've done obviously some realignment in our production team. In our household team, we've done some realignment. So we've been moving the resources around in the system. But I think net, we have more people on board at this time this year than we did at this time last year. So we are also growing. We're very careful about how we add staff because adding fixed costs, depending on what the business environment, can be very challenging. So we're very, very careful about how we where we make true adds to staff versus where we reallocate our resources.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, let me see if I have other questions. I think some of these relate to production, which might be better handled by myself, Dave, and Eleanor, but let me see if there are others that I think more relate specifically to your expertise. That's about Volunteer Nation bottlenecks. Is a question here that I think I can sort of answer myself, actually. Given the influx of demand, what are the thoughts about, scaling the operation without degrading quality? Where are our bottlenecks going to be? They're going to be in the same place they are now. The bottlenecks are the bottlenecks. We do have increased demand. We have more people there. Fortunately, we also have a greater influx of volunteers. There are a few places where I know that there are bottlenecks. There are bottlenecks in the training where people sort of hit that point where it's out of those first excitement stages of, oh boy, I really want to do this. And they get to the point that they find out that our volunteering is demanding. We ask a lot of our volunteers. And that's a place where that's where we see our first bottleneck, is where trainees hit that point and they say, gosh, there's a lot of technical stuff that goes into this. This is, whew, boy, it's work, and it's work. And the people who continue through, carry their energy through that, go on to do terrific things. So, be aware of that, be ready to work through that, that sort of first stage. After that, it's about trying to match the amount of work we can produce to the people who can quality check it, and so on. We know everybody wants to read. That's great. We also need listeners. We also need people who are willing to do QA on other stuff that they're not as directly involved in, to make sure that stuff doesn't get backed up. So that's another place. We need to match up the right voices to the right material. So that means that it's got to be it's got to be done with a high measure of quality. And that means, again, we need intensity, we need devotion, we need people who are willing to sort of go the extra mile with this kind of volunteering. And I mean, the people who we have we have some of the most devoted volunteers out there. We have people who put in lots of time, do a lot of great work. But I just want to be honest about it. Learning Ally volunteering is very different from volunteering that you may have experienced elsewhere. The things we ask of volunteers are very unique. And so I think a lot of it just comes down to like being willing to work through some of the challenges that you're going to face here that you're just, you're not going to find with other opportunities.
Well, and for all of our volunteers, whether you're on the call or not on the call, if you can imagine some student, a 5th grade boy, sitting home now with his mom and dad that are trying to work, and his 3rd grade sister and his 4-year-old brother, and he's sitting listening to a book that was recorded by our volunteers. What better way to actually escape all the stresses that are going on around him? And what we're going to be doing, one of the things I mentioned, is we're going to be making some updates to the reading app that the students use, so that we can recommend books to that child and say, you're in 5th grade. We know that you're a male based on the information that we get from your teacher. Here's some books that you might like. And eventually, we're not there yet, but we're going to get there. Based on the books that child read, we'll learn something about them, and then we'll be able to even be more targeted in our recommendations for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of stuff that is just so exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. I have a question here that I think is more, it's about, does the increase in comp memberships, how is that going to affect our finances? I think you have a better head for numbers than I do. So
wait, can you just ask me that question again? I don't see.
How does the increase in comp memberships affect the finances of the organization?
Well, yeah. So we're, as I said, these memberships through August 1st are complimentary. So we just decided that in order to be all in with our schools, our educators, and our parents, we were just going to remove any barriers to them getting up and running. So all of those memberships for those schools are complimentary. It does, what is not free for us is servicing them. So we have an organization, and we have a whole onboarding process and an engagement process that helps them get the educators registered, the students registered, the students reading. That is going to have an impact on our finances, because the expenses are not going away, but the revenue is. So that will have an impact on our fiscal 20 finances, an adverse impact.
Okay. All the more reason for our for us to be pushing on those fundraising efforts. All right, let me see. I have a few questions here. Paula, you had noted, yes, Justine, are all of the trainings done online? Yes, they are. We don't have any physical face-to-face training for volunteers. It's all done through online sites. In those first stages of training, it is nearly entirely work at your own pace through guided pre-recorded lessons and interactives. You'll be able to get more online connection with staff as you work your way through. We're always there through chat. Once a week, we have an online meeting, kind of like this one, where you can ask questions live and so on, and you get to use your microphones and cameras for that, because we don't have to. We generally don't have to deal with 124 people on the call at once. So that you can get some more individual coaching. As you pass through the stages, you'll be part of a team with more volunteer peers and more people, and you'll be able to get a more direct connection to that. But at the start, with just the influx of people, we kind of have to begin from a point of using sort of online training, some automated tools, and so on, just to be able to be sure that we can reach everybody and get people through those first stages. Let me see. Outreach materials. Can we share outreach materials with Volunteer Nation? I believe some of the outreach materials, Paula, a lot of that stuff is probably already there in some capacity. I mean, there's another question here about where to direct students. I mean, it's always good to start from our basic website.
Yeah, so on those outreach materials, if we're talking about the outreach materials for educators, when that new professional learning website gets set up, it will be on the outside. It'll be on a public facing site. It won't be behind the login wall. And Paula will be able to share that with you. I don't know whether it's this week or next week, but it's actively being worked on.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So look for those announcements.
Yeah.
One other thing I do want to note, there's a question here about where do we send our friends if they're looking to get books for their kids. So at learningally.org, you can see we have a couple different options here. There's the Solutions for School, which is usually where we used to send people all the time. Obviously, the schools are kind of overloaded with the situations right now, but we do also have our home program, so that we have assistance for parent resources and so on. We have in the past offered sort of home accounts, basically. More
household accounts. Yeah.
Yeah, household accounts. And that's still there. That's still an option. I mean, ideally, we like to go through schools because students can get more assistance through schools. We would love to teach a teacher and a whole room full of students to get access to that material if we can. But households are there. Solutions for Home individual memberships have never not been available. That's just not been our focus now, since our focus has been let's get large groups of students serve, to get that same service all at once. There was also a question about the volunteer portal. Okay, there was a question about Q&A and also a question about quick ways to get volunteering right away. If you go to the volunteers.learningally.org site, you'll be directed to this after you first, register with us and so on. You can see all of our different programs are basically listed here along the top. And QA is quality assurance, and that's one of the quickest ways to start helping us out. QA would actually have you doing evaluation of finished books that are in our catalog already. And these are generally older books that we're looking into revision and update and so on. So you would actually be listening to the books in the way that our borrowers would. You would download our Link software. There's a demonstration of Link here and here as well. Not certain if you can hear all that, but yeah. But you would be using the Link software that we have our borrowers download to their phones. You would listen to the books and you would fill out feedback forms to tell us, okay, is this good? Is this bad? Are there fixes that we can make, things that need to be changed, so that then we can go in and begin reevaluating that stuff. And, it's a lighter lift than a lot of the other volunteering. It's still an important part of the work that needs to be done. So if you want to be able to get started with something right away that that gives us some support and shows you've got some volunteer hours under your belt, you can get involved with that QA program. Otherwise, we have our online training programs for our courses, and yeah, you'll register there through the track to begin working as a volunteer, and we can see we have our different options here. I've got access to all of them, of course, because I'm one of the people who designs this stuff. So, so pay attention to the newer lessons because that's my best work, and don't look at the old stuff because that was years ago before I knew what I was doing. Eleanor could probably back me up on that. Yeah, but that's where you'll, you know, where you'll go to find your path in volunteering. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can look at the questions again. There we are. All right. So I'm hoping I answered a couple questions with that.
Actually, Rosa, I wanted to ask something to Cynthia because I'm feeling that we're having also like a combined mix of audience here with new people.
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia, do you mind talking a little bit about the requirements for our students to be part or to use our solution? Because when we hear the word, we're giving it to everybody may be confusing, and
Okay.
some of them may not know that there are definitely some requirements for them to use our solution.
Yeah, so we operate under what's called the Marrakesh Treaty. We used to operate under a federal provision called the Chafee Amendment. We now operate under an international treaty that's called the Marrakesh Treaty. And what that does is ensure equitable access to print-related materials to students with print-related learning deficits. And we have an eligibility guide that's on our website that outlines in very detailed scientific terms what those print-related deficits are. Because we operate very strictly within those boundaries, we're able to buy a book, buy Harry Potter on Amazon, chop it up, scan it, and then have our amazing volunteers narrate it, check it, and then make it available to our students. And because we're providing equitable access for someone with a special need to the print-related material, we cannot go outside of those boundaries. Even, I saw one of the questions about COVID-19. Even in the COVID-19 environment, we will do everything we can to get it to as many students, but we have to stay within those boundaries. And believe me, we have schools calling and saying, can I give this to all of my kids? And we just have to say no. So that's a legal requirement that there is no room for negotiation on. Anything else, give it to you complimentary, help us, help you get all your kids up and reading, get as many books into the bookshelves and into the library as possible. All of that we can control. But the boundaries of the eligibility requirements, we don't have any control over, and we have to stay within that. So I hope that answers some of the questions that I see. But trust me, we are working as hard and as creatively as we can to get the audiobooks that you guys are making into the hands of as many students as possible within those boundaries. And those boundaries actually apply to blind and visually impaired students. Those folks are well within those boundaries. Also, adults that have dyslexia that can demonstrate eligibility, they are within those boundaries. It has to be some type of eligible print-related disability.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Yeah, I think that's part of a two-part question. I'll see if I can swoop in to get some more of it. There's a question here from Dean about what efforts are being made to recruit new readers. The same efforts we've been making, honestly. We've never stopped recruiting readers. Unfortunately, some of our in-person recruitment used to take place at conventions that have been closed down for the year, but we are always listing our efforts online with places like Volunteer Match. We do reach out through organizations like Such a Voice in order to contact as many people as we can. We have all our online efforts, continue apace. Just some of those, live meet and greet handshake events are off because handshaking is obviously,
social distancing.
Out. So yeah, but basically the continuing the efforts we've been using, I think, cover a lot of that.
And something to add there, Russell, is that you guys that have been volunteering with us, you can be the perfect, channel for us to recruit more volunteers. You know how it is. You can tell other people about your experience and the impact that you are creating. So I think that's also something that we can use right now. So if you know other people looking for virtual volunteering opportunities, which I see a lot of people reaching out to me for that, this is the time for you to tell them about your experience, and in a way that we can get more readers.
All right, good, thank you. Let's see. I know there has been a question that's been sitting here for a while that I do want to touch on about Learning Ally readers reading periodicals for students. Generally, we have not done that. Dave or Eleanor, do you want to jump in to explain in any more detail? Well, I think you're still muted, sorry.
There we go. We haven't done that kind of content in the past, but as we explore ways to move beyond just the students we currently serve, there is other content out there that's available that may help in the classroom, and educators teach more universally across all their students using audio as a solution. So that's something we're going to explore in the future, but it's not something we do right now, but definitely something in our solutions development timeline.
Okay, thank you. We have a few questions around eligibility. How is that established, and how do we ensure that people are receiving that? There is a process. There's sort of a trial period with borrowers, and at the end of that, they provide to us a note from I'm forgetting the terminology. What is it? A
certified qualifier.
Certified eligibility qualifier.
I think what would make sense is, Paula, for you to send around at some point our eligibility guide.
Mm-hmm.
It's a well-written couple of pages, and it makes it very clear who's eligible and who's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are a lot of different ways for people to get that certification. It can come from a family doctor. It can come from a learning specialist at a school. And then once we have, and once we have that entered in the system, their account is basically unlocked, and they're sort of given free reign of the library, although their teachers still assign books to them, basically remotely saying, this is a book for your bookshelf. So when they open up their app, those books are the ones that are available there. But previous to that, they get a few trial books added to that account that they can test the system out and see how it works for them.
And the other thing that we're doing now is, what we have found is that our parents are having trouble contacting their certifiers. So these are our third-party reading specialists that do testing, and they're reading tutors, things like that, folks like that, and that the parents are having trouble contacting those people right now and getting the paperwork. So the other thing we're doing for the household accounts is we're extending that period. It used to be 14 days, and now I think we're extending it to the end of June, so that we're giving them plenty of time to produce the paperwork, and their students can keep reading throughout that period of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see a quick question here that I want to share with everybody about my background. I use a green screen because my room is a mess, but this is actually the Silver Garden at Longwood Gardens out in Pennsylvania, sort of in mid-Pennsylvania. It's one of my favorite places to go. Every year we get the annual membership so that we can freely come and go from the gardens. It's a beautiful place. This is one of the indoor conservatories. I highly recommend, if you need some soothing background in these troubled times, just go look up photographs of Longwood Gardens. Let's see. A question here about delays and deadlines during the crisis. How is that being handled? The same way we're handling deadlines and delays at other times of the year. It's possible that a volunteer needs to, go on a trip, or there are some life events that pop up. We always try to keep an open dialogue around those so that we can, make adjustments as needed. Dave, did you want to speak more specifically?
No, the biggest thing is just communication. Just as we go through this, just communication is the most important thing through all this. And
mm-hmm.
Although I will say that we're pushing hard on everybody right now. There's no question about it. On our team, We're pushing hard on our volunteers. We're pushing hard on everybody to get as much done as quickly as we can. So
Yep.
we'll apologize in advance if we're pushing too hard.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
As Paula mentioned earlier, we are a community, so
Yep.
stay in touch.
Yep. So one of the other questions that I think was part of another question, what is the biggest challenge to trained readers of recording books for Learning Ally? I'm going to suggest the need for accuracy primarily. Our system's pretty demanding about making sure we match up, word for word as exactly as we can. And even some of our voiceover professionals, there's a little bit of the actor in there that, sometimes it ends up with a touch of interpretation or a word being flipped here or there. But, what we strive for is 100% accuracy. Are we ever going to get that? I don't know, but I'd like to be 99.9999999% accurate. If we can't get 100, if we can get 100, that would be delightful. Let's see. Oh, good. See, Justine used to visit Longwood Gardens, so she knows. Oh, my childhood. Well, no. Let's see. I think we've answered most questions here. Let's see. I noticed the narrator is unnamed in books. Is it possible to change that? In general, that's not been our practice because this is an educational product. We do allow for narrators who've worked on books to actually, this is particularly done in literature, to request a sort of what do we call it? We call it a book trailer, which is selections from the book put together with, with an announcement of who has read it, largely as a thing that could be used, say, for the portfolio of a voiceover artist and such, where we give samples from the recording of the book. It's actually presented in the format of our audiobook presentation. So we kind of take a video clip of the app running with that book playing. So those audio trailers are a way that we can give people that they can then, show off on their website or share in order to give them some recognition for that work. But otherwise, we generally do not announce narrators because it is this educational product. Let's see. Oh, I think yep, there we are. Yes. I think we just covered that one. Good. Do authors ever listen to the narrated version of their work? I doubt it. I mean, they would have to be.
We've had some authors actually do the narration.
Yep.
They would have to be members unless it's a special circumstance. I imagine if they came to us and asked about it, we could set them up. But otherwise, they would actually have to be borrowers for us, for them to be able to just pull it up on the app and and just hear it. Let's see.
2 more minutes.
Okay. Yeah. We're running low on time. Is there any if there are a few questions here, I think we can follow those up. Those are all saved later, so we can try and follow up with you through email if necessary.
I was going to mention one thing. There was a lot of production-related questions. I don't know, Eleanor and Russell, you want to promote your office hours or your open hours as a way to have some of these questions answered as they pop up?
That's a good idea. Yeah. On Thursdays at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the training center has what we call our office hours, which again it's a meeting similar to this, except your microphones and cameras are on because it's generally not 100 people. I mean, who knows? Maybe it will be this week. But that's a time for us to just sort of answer face-to-face questions, usually about the training, but also getting into production as well. We usually also have people who work in the post-training textbook team and the post-training literature team. We'll also be there to answer stuff more specifically about book production within those teams. So you'll have access to, the trainers and then the team managers to, help you sort out things like technical considerations, training considerations, and then just sort of questions about more general questions about production. Specific stuff, might be better to email us or use the Hangout chats and so on to get us for something that's more like specific and direct. We are available to get on the phone or get on a chat like this with you and do screen shares and so on to try to work through, very specific technical issues as needed. Again, depends on your time zone. Hopefully you line up with us because otherwise, we're there with the chats, we're there with the comments, and there is a wealth of information on the training sites that, you know, I think there's a lot more there than you'd suspect, honestly. So, you know, don't be afraid to search around a little bit, click around at things, and just take a look at what's available to you, because there's a lot more there than I think you'd expect. Let's see. I'm able to see. Yes, this event has been recorded. We will share it out as a video shortly, probably by tomorrow. I think that's usually how quick I can turn it around. And yeah, then you'll be able to review later. But we are out of time.
We're out of time. So Russell, thanks so much for leading our QA, which was a little hard with questions related to, you know, that Cynthia could answer, and as well as production questions. But I just wanted to thank everybody for your participation. We saw a lot of people joining us today. As Russell said, the webinar has been recorded and will be available under resources in our volunteer portal. As Cynthia mentioned, we're going to share with volunteers some information about professional learning, as well as our eligibility guide. So wait for our next Volunteer Voice, which is our newsletter, and I'll make sure to include that information there for you to review. And normally what we do with the questions and comments on the webinar is that we try to reply to every question you know, via email. So we'll do our best to do that. Thanks so much to Cynthia I know how busy you are right now dealing with all these changes. So I appreciate your time, to Dave, Eleanor, and I really hope everybody is safe and healthy. And again, follow the recommendations that our healthcare authorities are providing, and stay safe. We just want to be ready for whenever this comes to an end.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. We'll see you again.